this situation just got crazier. The Jose Siri injury now has even more implications, and the Mets still haven't made a roster move, and we as fans and the media still don't know what the Mets are planning to do now that Jose Siri is officially hitting the injured list. This is still a disaster. The Mets play baseball in less than 7 hours. They need to fill that spot. That way they can have a 26th man on the roster and not be at a roster disadvantage. It's 12:46 right now as I'm filming. Again, the Mets play at 7:30 tonight. They're less than 7 hours away from first pitch. Make a move, please. Welcome back to Mets Digest, everyone. I'm your host, Mike Duda. And as always, I like to start off with some statistics, and we'll go back to the subscriber stats that we saw in the last video. 77.2% of you are not subscribed to the channel that watch these videos. So please do us all a favor here at Mets Digest and hit that free subscribe button. That way you can be a part of the amazing club, and it really helps us out at Mets Digest to produce content for you about the New York Metropolitans. So, as you heard earlier, Jose Siri hitting the IL. If you didn't watch 2 videos ago where I first discussed Jose Siri, that was posted last night, Tuesday night. I really recommend that Monday night. I really recommend that you go watch that video because that'll give you a lot of the backstory. It'll show you the clip of the injury. And I also made some predictions that I'm going to reference here in this video. So go watch that video if you haven't already. And now that you have, or I assume that you have, let's get into the new details. ESPN reports a broken left leg. I wouldn't say that's necessarily the case because officially the MRI showed a fractured left tibia for Jose Siri, and the timetable there is really, really questionable. Sometimes it's a couple of weeks, sometimes it's months, so it's really a wait and see. Something that Siri said is that they're going to go in for further testing next week, at least he hopes, and we'll probably get a better timetable there. But for now, again, the Mets have to make some form of a roster move. Here are the quotes from the manager, Carlos Mendoza. Skip said, "We've got to get more information before we know how long he's going to be out, but he's going to be out for a while." So again, this could be weeks, months, who really knows? Now, for this video, I tried to get 5 of the best sources that I could find because a lot of people are reporting on this injury, and rightfully so. That's the way reporting works. But these are the best sources that I personally could find. A couple of quotes from the skipper, but we will also get some quotes from insiders as well. Here's another one from the skip. "It's not really surprising seeing how much pain he was going through and watching him walk. He could barely put any weight on it. That's why we sent him for the MRI today." And that's what it showed, as in the fractured left tibia, which again, we don't have a timetable for return. Now, that's the injury update itself. You probably won't get another one of these for, again, a week, because that's when Siri is likely going to go in for more testing. The updates that we need to know now are the roster implications, and the Mets still haven't discussed who may come up to take his place on this roster, according to John Flanagan of SNY, but they feel good about their current options, and Tyrone Taylor is expected to take on the bulk of the workload. Now, that makes sense because Siri and Taylor were splitting time out in center field. So now that Siri's down, why not go with the other guy as your main center fielder? But the Mets have also discussed other options as well. The skip said Tyrone will continue to get a lot of opportunities. We'll prepare Jesse Winker to get more opportunities, and obviously Starling Marte, which I find interesting because, again, going back to that last video, we saw that Marte is going to be used more as a DH because he's older. Mets are currently in Game 5 of a 13-day consecutive streak where they play baseball. So a little interesting there. But again, Mendoza says, "We feel good with our outfield depth. It's unfortunate for Siri, but we like what we have here." So likely one of these situations will play out. It likely won't be a big problem. As I was trying to allude to last video, it's just this roster reconstruction is a real pain. Something interesting that I noticed here is with Luis Angel Acuna. Mendy mentioned that another guy that could potentially switch spots is Luis Angel Acuna. He played center field a lot in the minor leagues, both in the Rangers system and then when he got traded for Max Scherzer in the Mets system. And according to Acuna, Mendy told me at any given moment to be ready if they need me out in center field. It's just my job to be prepared for any situation. So Acuna out in center field, it probably makes sense in some capacity. I personally don't agree with it. Acuna was taking outfield reps in BP, so he'll probably do that again today before the game, which is, again, interesting because he wants to be ready for center field, which I understand from Mendoza. I don't see that as a problem. What I see as a problem is the way that him going to center field affects the rest of the lineup. You all know how much I dislike Brett Baty being in this lineup, and with Acuna in center, you need to start Baty at second. That's why I think Acuna should stay at second, keep him there, keep Vientos at third, and then just put Tyrone Taylor in center field. And when he needs a day off, whoever is not DHing, as in Winker or Marte, should get the start out in the outfield. And ideally, it would be Marte who's out in center field, Winker DHing. But if you need Winker to be out in the outfield, you slide Nimmo to center for a game, and you put Winker in left. Now, pretty basic with the injury update that we have, but what's not basic is the way, again, this roster is going to be reconstructed. Nobody knows. So there are plenty of reports. I've gathered a bunch of players that could be called up for this roster spot. The first being Jose Azocar. I believe I'm saying that right. I don't even know him. Him and Gilberto Celestino, another guy that I don't necessarily know too well, both of the stats I just pulled up on the screen, they are, quote, standing out as the obvious suspects at AAA Syracuse, according to Anthony Giacomo of MLB.com. So I'll go back here, show you Azocar's stats. I'm really going to struggle if the Mets bring him up. A 74 OPS plus, 610 OPS. Definitely not the best hitter, but I understand why the Mets wouldn't necessarily bring up the best hitter. 14 stolen bases per 162 is not that bad. The Mets are probably trying to replace Jose Siri in theory and in the way that they bring up their prospect, i.e. bring up a defensive guy that can play a good center field and someone who will steal a lot of bases when they're on base. And you see here, Celestino makes a little less sense because he doesn't steal as many bases, but for all I know, he might be a fantastic defender. Don't really know. Here's my personal pick, because it looks like Nico Goodrum, who was my personal pick last night, in the video last night, it looks like they're not going to bring him up. So my best pick, at least in my opinion, is Billy McKinney. He has played with the Mets before. You see it right there. He's played in 2021. He played 39 games for the Mets, took over 100 plate appearances, and he's a pretty fast guy. He's a good defender, and I think he's going to be the best option to replace Siri in theory. Rhyme not intended. So I think they should go with McKinney, but again, there's more options to report. Now, McKinney was of a different reporter. This was from Tim Britton of The Atlantic, and the rest of his recommendations are the guys I'm going to be going over next. Next guy being Rafael Ortega. He was another guy that we talked about last night. 85 OPS plus, 671 OPS. So he's probably the best hitter out of the Mets that are being rumored to come up and fill that series spot. And pretty solid. Definitely some pretty solid stats. Also 19 stolen bases per 162. So I don't think Ortega would be the worst option for the Mets to bring up. Next guy is someone I genuinely thought was a prospect. Didn't even know him. Donovan Walton. I've heard the name before, but I really thought he was a prospect, to be completely honest with you all. Spends a lot of time in the West, Seattle, and San Fran. You see his stats there. Definitely not a very good hitter, and only 2 stolen bases per 162 and a negative WAR. I don't think he would be the best fit given the circumstances and the situation. Next guy is Luis de los Santos. More of a prospect. He's only played 13 games in the pros, and that worries me a little bit too much. When you're on a roster that is so high in terms of their expectations that they need to go to the World Series, basically, I don't think rookies that are coming up for their first time are a good idea. I know Luis Angel Acuna is a rookie, but we've seen him play before he established himself last year. Last guy that was mentioned by Britton is Luke Ritter. Obviously, Ritter has not played in the professionals yet, but here are his career minor league stats, and pretty solid overall. 773 OPS is not that bad. So I don't think Ritter is a bad option. Overall, I like McKinney, Ortega, and honestly, I don't think Luke Ritter would be the worst option as well. But the Mets really, they just need to figure out this roster situation now because we are inching closer and closer to game time. And then this will be a game that they don't have one of those roster spots that they can fill. They would have a void, and that will hurt the team. So Mets got to figure it out soon. I will be providing content for you when we get an update about who is taking over this Jose Siri spot. But as always, I want to wrap up with some comments. Is this just a copy of Jay's Digest, but for the Mets? It actually is. So all of our channels here at Digest Media, they run the exact same way. It's just a different team that is being covered. So yeah, we pretty much are here at Mets Digest, here to provide content for you about the Amazons. And then Phil, who has been commenting on a couple of videos. LGM, I hope everyone has a great day and the New York Mets continue their winning waves. Yes, they won again last night. Square off against Minnesota once again tonight. Tyler McGill will take the bump. He has an 0.62 ERA. So excited to see him pitch tonight. As always, let's go Mets. That's all the time that I have today. Again, Siri, he's hurt. He's hurt for a while. He's hitting the IL. Mets need to figure out this roster reconstruction now. Thank you all so much for watching. Stay tuned for the update that I have in terms of the roster when the Mets actually decide they want to make a roster move. And as always, let's go Mets.